I disappeared. I didn't die, no. I just vanished. Without a sound. Without witnesses. I live in a house where laughter still echoes. Once upon a time, children played here, my wife shouted across the kitchen, and every evening I came home from work feeling needed. Now there is only silence. So much of it that sometimes it seems heavier than air. The house is old but clean. I keep everything in order, it's a habit. I dust every day. I wash the stove, even if I'm not cooking. I open the curtains at exactly 8:15. Tea, 1 bag, 2 minutes to steep, no more. The TV is on, but without sound. Not because I can't hear. I just know that everything they say there has already been said. Just with different faces. My children are successful. Dimitro has opened a chain of dental clinics, and Marina manages something to do with digital transformation. Not long ago, they would call and say, "Dad, how are you?" and, "We'll come over on the weekend." Now there is silence. Except sometimes at Christmas. And even then, photos on Instagram are more important. My grandchildren. Bogdan, the younger one, once asked, "Grandpa, don't you have an iPhone?" and laughed. No, not maliciously. Just the way people laugh when they don't realize they've just shot you in the heart. At the clinic, they called me our old man, and didn't even look up when I asked about my test results. At the store, when I dropped a jar, the saleswoman just stepped over it as if it were air. I am not there. But I am there. It's a strange feeling. I don't take offense anymore. No. I observe. I write things down. When you're silent long enough, you hear more. I know who said what. Who didn't say anything. Who betrayed silently, and who betrayed with a smile. My notebook is not a diary. It's a map. Sometimes it seems that I am writing formulas rather than words. Formulas for return. Because fire, even if small, can light up an entire city. And when it is not allowed to shine, it begins to burn. I haven't done anything yet. But I have already stopped forgiving. Once upon a time, my name carried weight. There was a time when I didn't walk into a room. I made an entrance. People stood up. They looked me in the eye. They waited for my decision. I wasn't born strong. I became strong. Through mud, through loss, through betrayal. They beat me, I got up. They sold me, I bought myself back. They deceived me, I thanked them and learned my lesson. That was my school. No vacations. The 90s didn't ask if you were ready. They just came, with raiders, with bandits, with hunger, with empty shelves and full backpacks of understandings. I started with a container at the market. I sold socks. Then, second-hand goods from Poland. Then, furniture. Then I opened my first warehouse. I wasn't the smartest. But I remembered faces. And I never forgot my debts, financial and moral. Leadership isn't about shouting louder. It's about staying calm when everyone else is shaking. I saved my people. When my partners wanted to go into the gray zone, I said, no, and lost everything. But I got back 3 times as much. When my wife got sick, I slept on a bench outside the intensive care unit for a month so I could sign every consent form and monitor every 4 drip. I sold my car so that Dimitro could go study abroad. I mortgaged my dacha so that Marina would have startup capital for her project. When her startup failed, I didn't say anything. I just transferred more money. In those years, I was a samurai in a suit from the market. Not for anyone else, for myself. Because honor is not for the public. It's when you can look at the ceiling at night, and not be ashamed of your own life. Now it's different. The phone is silent. My hands are free, but they are not needed. I used to not have time for lunch, now lunches are without conversation, without laughter, without tea. For 2. They are all somewhere. Close but far away. In new houses, with new furniture bought with money that I once did not spend on myself. I built their world brick by brick. And now I am not in it. This is not an insult. It is the truth. I do not want them to cry. I want them to remember. And even more, to be afraid. Because the one who gave everything and was left with nothing is the most dangerous. He has nothing to lose. And that means he is capable of anything. They think death is the end. But there is something worse than death. It's when people see you but don't notice you. When you're nearby but no one hears you. It's when you say, hello, and get an automatic uh-huh in response, like an answering machine. That's not death. That's fading away. I called Dmitri 3 times last week. I just wanted to say that I had been to the doctor, that my blood pressure was fluctuating again, that they had changed my pills, and that they were having a strange effect. I would have said it simply. Without complaining. Without. Feel sorry for me. But he didn't pick up the phone. And he didn't call back. Marina sent a basket for Easter, by courier. The note said, hugs. But there was no signature. It wasn't even her handwriting. I then remembered that it was copied from an old postcard. I bought that postcard myself once. In the supermarket, I dropped a bag of apples. The plastic broke. I bent down slowly because my back won't let me make any sudden movements. 2 girls in tracksuits stepped over me, not silently, no. One of them said, "He shouldn't be crawling around here." The other one laughed. And they both disappeared between the shelves. I stood there and thought, why? I used to build for people like them. I paid their salaries. I raised their parents. I kept order. And now I'm a nuisance, background noise, an obstacle in the way. I'm not perfect. But I'm not empty. And that's why it hurts. At the hospital appointment, the doctor didn't even look at me. He said to the nurse, "Take the old man away, he can't hear, I don't have time for this charade." I heard him. And I understood everything. He doesn't feel any pain either. He's just another cog in the machine. Sterile, indifferent. Bogdan, my grandson, once showed me a video on his phone. It showed a grandfather who had fallen into a puddle, and someone was filming it. Everyone was laughing. I said, "That's sad." And he replied, "Why, it's funny. So what if it's a grandfather?" And I remembered, I also laughed at old people when I was young. But then I repented. And here, there's not even an understanding that laughter is a knife. I started writing things down. Everything. When. Who. What they said. Who lied. Who ignored me. Names, dates, details. Why? I don't know. Maybe so I don't lose myself. Or maybe so I don't forgive. Because pain is not a scream. It is silence that has no outlet for a long time. It accumulates. Like water behind a dam. And when the concrete cracks, you don't hear it right away. But then it covers everyone. And I know, someday this silence will speak. And its voice will be more terrifying than any scream. It all happened quietly. Like a blade sliding without a hiss. No screams. No dramatic scenes. But something inside me snapped. That morning, I was coming back from the pharmacy. The autumn wind was tugging at the bag's thin plastic skin, like my hands. I was walking slowly, leaning on my cane. I could have walked faster. But why? At the turn, I stumbled. It wasn't my heart, just the uneven sidewalk, a loose stone. I fell. The bag scattered, the pills rolled across the asphalt like beads. I lay there. People walked by. One looked. And turned away. 2 teenagers laughed. "Look, Grandpa got gravity again." I heard someone mutter. But nobody needs him. They should put him in a nursing home. That, nobody needs him. Stuck in my mind like a needle in my eye. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just slowly got up. I picked up the bags. I took the 2 remaining pills. I looked around. And I felt cold. A cold that I hadn't felt in many years. It wasn't grief. It was something more precise. I would call it a return. At home, I put the kettle on. Not for tea. just to feel the ritual. Then I went to a room I hadn't been in for a long time. I opened the closet. Behind the lining was a button. It opened an old safe that I had assembled myself back in the 90s. Inside, my first Nokia, still with a black and white screen, not connected to the network, but charging. A black leather notebook with contacts that could once change cities. Folders. Old archives. Contracts. Photos. Manuscripts. Receipts. Mistakes. Betrayals. Everyone who thought I had forgotten. I held the chessboard again. And I remembered how to play. I dialed the first number. The voice on the other end changed after the third word. He thought I was dead. I said, "You still owe me a word." And I came for it. I didn't threaten. I just started the game. Because if they don't count you, make sure they count everyone else but you. I was invisible. And that is my greatest strength. A predator in the shadows is not a shadow, it is a trap. I drew up a plan. A clear one. Like before, a plan to launch a factory. But now it's not a business. It's payback. And it won't be loud. It will be subtle. Like a thread slowly tightening around the neck of betrayal. I didn't take revenge. I just set up mirrors and let them see themselves. And what they saw broke them more than any blow could have. I was no longer there. Not for them. But I was everywhere, in their gadgets, in their emails, in random leaks, in notes that someone, accidentally, sent to the wrong address. I started small. Nothing illegal. Just the truth. Cleansed of hypocrisy. My son Dmitri, the one who no longer answers the phone, received an anonymous letter. It contained a document proving that his senior partner had been skimming profits for years and had taken out loans for the clinic that Dmitri knew nothing about. I didn't fake anything. I just knew where to look. Once, this partner asked me to vouch for him. And I kept a copy. My son was summoned to the bank. Then to the tax office. Then there was a public scandal. On Facebook, he wrote something about an internal purge. But I know he didn't sleep for 3 nights. Marina, my daughter and manager, lost her main client. A leak of information from her project forced investors to pull out. No one could figure out where the leak came from. But I remembered that she used to use an old email account. Her password was the name of her favorite cat. I bought her that cat when she was a child. My grandson Bogdan was about to sign a contract with a brand. Youth fashion. Social campaigns. But suddenly, an old video of him laughing at an elderly person who had fallen at a bus stop was leaked online. The caption read, "Is this our future?" He was unfollowed. Sponsors refused him. He recorded a video with apologies. Fake. But for the first time, there was fear in his eyes. And the question, who did this? I didn't do anything myself. I just moved the first domino. And watched as their world, built on convenience and oblivion, crumbled. Those I had once helped remained silent. But I knew they were helping me now. A former banker I saved from prison in 2001. An IT specialist I supported when he was fired from his company. A journalist who once worked for my company, and now had access to the media. I didn't say it was revenge. I said, I just reminded them who they are. Without embellishment. My phone was silent. But at home, tension. The landline started flashing. The calls came one after another. Dad, are you okay? Can we come over? Grandpa, are you home? And I didn't answer. I made tea. Without rushing. And I read my notes. And every time the phone went silent, I smiled. Silence is no longer emptiness. It is a mirror. And I made them look into it longer than they were comfortable with. They didn't know who, but they all felt it. Somewhere nearby, there was a shadow. And this shadow doesn't ask, doesn't cry, doesn't bless. It just waits. And sees everything. I didn't become a better person. And I didn't seek forgiveness. I just regained my balance. In silence. Without triumph. Without regret. The last day of Indian summer. The light was soft and warm. The silence was like silk. I sat on the porch. The old wicker chair creaked with my breathing. In my hands was a notebook. The pages were turned. Almost all of them. Only the last one remained. Everyone was already in place. They had returned. Not together, no. First Marina arrived, with flowers, tired, as if after a great defeat. Then Dmitri, no longer so loud, with eyes that sought approval like a child. The grandchildren, like in a movie without a script. They were afraid to look into my eyes. And when they did look, they didn't see the person they remembered. Because I was no longer there. Someone else was sitting in front of them. I didn't scold them. I didn't reproach them. I didn't yell. I just looked at them silently. That look, cold and direct, did more than 1,000 words. Because words are sounds. And a look is a verdict. We drank tea. Everyone was silent. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. They already knew. They already guessed. But they were afraid to ask directly. Because they weren't ready to hear yes as an answer. Yes. It's me. Yes. I saw everything. Yes. I made you look at yourselves. And no, I don't regret it. Before going to bed, I opened my notebook. I wrote the last line. They forgot who I was. So I reminded them. Not out of hatred. Out of principle. Because old age is not the end. It is a mirror in which everyone will see their own face. If they have the courage not to look away. I closed the notebook. I blew off the dust. I put it on the shelf. And I felt, not relief, no. Something better. They were afraid again. Which meant they respected me again. The sun was slowly setting outside the window. Today, I am not just a shadow. Today, I am the ending of a story that no one has finished reading. But one that has changed everyone.
Subscribe and like this video, more interesting revenge stories of elderly people coming soon.